Welcome everyone to our Vision Australia webinar on Getting into Fashion on today, the 2nd of June 2020. I'm Polly Goodwin and I'm your host for today's check-in and chat session. I'm really excited to welcome two excellent guest speakers to bring their expertise to this topic. Firstly, Chloe Norton, fashion programmer at the Melbourne Fashion Festival, and my wonderful colleague Vildana Praljak, a service designer for social inclusion here at Vision Australia. Whilst this is a virtual gathering, I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're all separately meeting and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Before we get started, just a reminder that this session is being recorded, so if you have to drop out at any point or want to watch it again, you can access the recording later via our webpage at www.visionaustralia.org/check-in and chat. So in today's conversation, we're going to cover lots of things, starting with Vision Australia's partnership with the Melbourne Fashion Festival, also current trends in the fashion industry, and some really helpful insights around key terminology. Also how to identify and dress to your own style if you're blind or have low vision, and some advice on online shopping. We will be leaving plenty of time at the end of the webinar for questions, and I'll do my best to get through as many of them as possible. So do please get in touch with any questions or comments that you have for our two experts about these or anything related to fashion, and we'll do our best to get through as many as we can in the time permitting. You can submit your questions using the chat functionality. If you're a JAWS user, you can access the chat function with the keystroke Alt-H. Okay, so let's start off talking a little bit about Vision Australia's partnership with the Melbourne Fashion Festival. And Vildana, maybe you can start. How did it come about?
Hi everyone, it's Vildana here. So a couple of years ago, together with my colleague at the time, Kate, we've approached Melbourne Fashion Festival really just proposing some ideas on how Vision Australia and Melbourne Fashion Festival can collaborate together and really bring that kind of whole notion of fashion and the fashion and the style and the glamour into the disability world, in particular for people who are blind or have low vision, who have been kind of traditionally excluded from that world. So we had a chat with amazing person from Melbourne Fashion Festival. Her name is Yolanda, and she's the acting CEO at the moment. And we just talked how we can work together, what are some of the opportunities we could explore, and how our community can really have this incredible access to fashion industry. So from there, Yolanda, some time has passed and Yolanda has reached out sometimes last year saying, hey, remember our conversation? Can we talk? And we did, and we've decided that Melbourne Fashion Festival March 2020 should be audio described, and we've partnered and we launched into this incredible adventure and journey because we just simply were not aware or had very little reference points on how to describe a runway. What are some things that, some challenges, and I'm sure, Polly, you can talk a bit about that because you were actually the audio describer that was meant to deliver the description. Some of the challenges that we were or dilemmas we've had. So it was pretty amazing, interesting partnership, and throughout that we worked very closely with Chloe, who is the fashion programmer, and she'll introduce herself. But yeah, she was absolutely amazing, and the whole team in just supporting us to enable access to fashion and runways to people who are blind or have low vision. So yeah, it was pretty amazing.
And so Chloe, moving to you, how was it working with Vision Australia? Had you done anything like this before?
Hello everyone, Chloe here. I hadn't done anything like this before, and I think it was a really exciting journey to embark on. I think that Melbourne Fashion Festival considers themselves to be quite accessible to everyone. However, no one is perfect. And working closely with Vildana and yourself to create an event that was, really tailored to your audience It was exciting. It was fun. And we put together, you know, quite a VIP experience, one that, you know, not really anyone else has ever done before. Unfortunately, obviously, it wasn't able to go ahead. And, you know, I think we'll talk about that a bit later and what we did. But Polly, you know, you mentioned, you know, the audio described runways, and you actually put together these the audio descriptions, and they were incredible. I know you sent me through a draft, and I was reading them, and you know, at that point the event hadn't taken place. It was just the rehearsal, so you were going off the rehearsals, and there was more detail in your descriptions, and I think someone would notice when the model quickly walks past and they've got their phone out and they're taking a photo. You know, you're talking about the buttons and the hem and the lace and the neckline, and I don't know, it was a huge learning experience for me as well. It's been great.
I think that's right. I think learning experiences is what I associate most with this project, because it has only been attempted a few times in the past, and that's mainly with student shows as far as we can understand. And so it was really exciting to have that opportunity around what is an audio described runway? What does that look like? What does it consist of? And the more that I think we looked at it, we realized there were so many components that could be described. There's the items of clothing themselves, how they worked together, how they moved on the models, how they related to the model's shape, size and color, and then the whole performance of the
event
runway
itself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The runway, it's a theater show, you know. It is, it's a complete experience in itself. And I remember you were saying to me, how do I fit it all in, Chloe?
Absolutely. I wanted,
Yeah.
so we did a timing of how long it took the models to get down, each model to process the runway, and I think it was about 40 seconds, which ended up being nothing to say everything you wanted. And to help us with that process, we reached out to some of the clients who had bought tickets for the event to ask them what they wanted, because I think at the end of the day, that's what we've got to get right. We've got to describe what people are interested in.
Exactly.
And I've got to say, it didn't help that much, because when I sort of said, would you rather know about the models or would you rather know about the clothes or the space, they sort of said everything. We want to know everything. So I was like, okay, okay, right, we'll do
Challenge
that
accepted.
I think the other really exciting thing for me was your colleagues' amazing thought process that went into the touch tour. So if you've never been to a theatre show that's been audio described before, there's very often a touch tour that goes with it. So ahead of the performance, you'll go to the theatre, you'll be able to touch some of the costumes, the set, have a conversation with some of the backstage crew perhaps. And so when it came to translating that into what do you do behind the scenes at a fashion show, the result was so exciting. You know, we were taken right through backstage and past the model section into the hair and makeup to smell the makeup and the hairspray and all of those sorts of things. And then it was past the particular fashion wall where they take photographs of each of the outfits. And so there was be an opportunity for our clients to have a photo there. And then for me, the most exciting bit was that they would themselves walk the runway. So really get to feel what that felt like.
But just to provide a bit of context, because we might be having some people joining us, or absolutely joining us, people from not just Melbourne, from all over Australia. So in this partnership, obviously Vision Australia was delivering audio description for a couple of runways at Melbourne Fashion Festival, March 2020. And literally 2 hours before the runway, the show has been cancelled, or the festival kind of stopped due to COVID-19 and the government restrictions that were put in place straight after, or that announcement. So it didn't go ahead this year, unfortunately, although we were ready, and the tickets were sold out for audio described seats, and it was just pretty amazing. But rest assured, it's happening again next year in whichever format the festival decides to go ahead. Absolutely, we will be bringing the fashion to our blindness community.
That's right.
Yeah, I think,
and Chloe, going back to that moment where I remember us at the building
we were
at the
sitting
time,
there.
we all got called into the exhibition hall, which is where the fashion festival was taking place. Tell us about that moment.
Oh, it was such a surreal moment, and I know it's you were there with me, Polly. Obviously, because the event is so large, we have 1,500 people at each runway and we do 2 runways a night. So, you know, we still have additional people in the plaza, which is where our bars are. So if we're looking at having, you know, 4,000 to 5,000 people a night, we were getting really nervous in the middle of the run, in the middle of the festival, and sort of, you know, we were looking at what was going on around the world, and there were future events that started to cancelled, and obviously we were really unsure about what to do. We wanted to wait for a government authority, and once that announcement was made at, I think, about 4:30 on Friday, 2 hours before the runway was about to begin, Polly and I are doing our final rehearsals. Our acting CEO Yolanda came and gave such an emotional speech, and you could really feel it in the room. You know, it was you know, we work on this event all year round, and so it was a weird moment, and just like that, everyone was told to pack up and go home. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've just had a question in from Rosemary, who's asked whether the audio description notes we made could be released. And absolutely, yes, we did. That was our solution. We thought, okay, the runway's not happening, but we know what would have happened. So we prepared those. So absolutely, we can share those with you.
That was an initiative that you really drove, Polly, and it was incredible, because I know that we felt bad that obviously there was this new exciting initiative. We'd put all the groundwork in, and then 2 hours people would have been on their way to the event, and then we had to say sorry, it's not happening.
That's right.
So.
And so Melbourne Fashion Festival was a really early casualty of COVID-19. And I've heard that the industry's responded by going digital and streaming presentations on digital platforms. Can you tell us a bit about that? Is that the way forwards, do you think, for fashion shows?
I think that in the current times, it's definitely a way to adapt. It's a way for designers and brands and companies to still connect with their audiences and their consumers. You know, a lot of designers have faced huge disruption in having collections ready or made. You know, a lot of people who produce in different countries, if you've got your collection over one side of the world and you're over on the other side, you can't just get it shipped over to you because everything literally came to a standstill. But going digital, what I think that, yeah, we did see, who did we see? We saw Shanghai and we saw Helsinki. They went digital. And what Shanghai did is they did something really similar to what Melbourne Fashion Festival does, and it's all about the see now, buy now. So kind of taking out that middle person and just going directly to consumer, which is what the festival has been about since its beginning. And what you know, what they were doing was you could actually tune in live, and as the collections were coming down, if you saw a blazer or a skirt or something that you really loved, you could actually click there and then go to that designer's online store and buy it. So I think that is a great initiative. Will digital take over is your question? I don't think so. I think it'll be included. I think it'll be something that everyone will pay greater attention to. If we didn't have online shopping, if we didn't have all of these, you know, Instagram and digital platforms, designers wouldn't be able to connect with their audience at all during this time. So I think for that exact factor, that's quite lucky. But in, you know, there's nothing quite like going to a show live. It's like a theater show, you know, and I know that with fashion, you know, it's the model walking down the runway is kind of like one element. You've got smells and sights and sounds and lighting, and you're in a room full of people, and it just has this buzzy energy, and I don't think that you'd be able to ever replace that.
That's kind of brought me on to something else we wanted to talk about, and something I found really challenging when we were developing descriptions for the fashion festival, and that's understanding and using the right terminology to identify clothing and styles. And we know that there's a lot of jargon that gets used in fashion, and it's not always obvious what these things mean. And Chloe, I know you've helped us pull together a list of some of the key terminology, and we'll make that available through our social media platforms, and we can email it out to everyone joining us here today. But could you run us through some of those key terms which we might be getting confused about just what they mean?
And just to add that they're quite common if you're using VoiceOver and you're scrolling through an online website that you're wanting to buy something, and there is like poet sleeve, what does that mean? So yeah, Chloe was very kind in pulling together some of these key terminology and really breaking it down and help us figure out what is what.
Yeah, and as you've just mentioned, Vildana, we do have a much more extensive list that we'll make available. But yeah, just pulling out some sort of basic or simple terms that are sort of like everyday clothes. I guess starting with women's tops. So if we're going to compare tops, or if you're online shopping and you hear that a top is named a certain way, if it's a blouse, it's usually a dressier top. It's usually kind of like what Vildana is wearing. I would say that that is a blouse right now. It's silk, is it, Vildana?
Yes.
Yeah. But a blouse compared to a t-shirt. So a t-shirt is usually a casual cotton weekend t-shirt. I don't think you'd be wearing a blouse to a t-shirt to an evening dinner. Then you've also got a tank top. So a tank top is a sleeveless top worn by either women or men, and it's usually really tight. So it sort of cuffs and goes just along the shoulder. It could either have a round neck or a V-neck, but that's what a tank top is. And then you've got a shirt. So a shirt is different to all of those, and a shirt traditionally is buttoned up from the top down to the bottom, so it opens in the middle. A shirt traditionally also has a collar, and it also has cuffs. So there are some shirts that are short-sleeved shirts, so they will actually end just after the shoulder, and they won't have a cuff. But I think that the collar and the buttons really identify what a shirt is. So that's shirts. Also, if there is any questions on terminology, shoot them through now. So jumpers, coming into winter, jumpers and jackets. I actually wrote a couple down because we're coming into winter, and if you want a jacket, what are you looking for? So a down jacket is a puffer jacket. Traditionally has feathers throughout it, and it's used for insulation. It might not be your most fashionable piece, but some of them are looking pretty trendy these days. A puffer jacket also traditionally finishes at the waist. However, they've started making them where they come down sort of just above the knee. And I think those are a bit more of your sort of high fashion puffer jackets rather than a camping jacket, which I have a camping jacket. Maybe
Chloe,
I need to upgrade. Yeah.
can I ask about the puffer jacket piece? Because I'm just thinking about, particularly when you're thinking about clothing and your body shape and what works with that. Is there anyone who should steer away from a puffer jacket, or is there a way that you can wear it so that it looks particularly flattering?
So I think that if you want your puffer jacket to look flattering, you'd probably be going for one that is going to be sort of past the waistline, just because it will sort of, rather than hugging and finishing just above the waist, even if you're wearing jeans, or you can make it look quite stylish, but I do think the ones that go just above the knee, they are more stylish, just in the way that they are.
And we've had a question come through around some terminology for men. So, for instance, what's the difference between a sweatshirt versus a jumper, a blazer versus a coat, and slim fit versus sports fit?
Okay, what was the first one again?
The first one was sweat versus a jumper.
Okay, so a sweater, well, a sweater and a jumper, they are similar. A sweater is definitely a pullover, and a sweater is sometimes called a jumper. So sometimes if you're seeing both of those terminologies, it's kind of a similar thing. So a sweater won't have buttons, and a jumper won't have buttons. But if you wanted to take a sweater and a jumper and add a big hood at the end, that's what you call a hoodie. So sweater and jumper, they sort of sit quite closely next to each other. Now, a blazer and a coat. Okay, so a blazer I see as, it's not as thick as a coat. It might be known as a dinner jacket or an evening jacket. However, blazers are worn casually throughout the day as well over jeans. I love wearing a dinner jacket or a blazer over jeans. A coat is a lot thicker. So a coat is something that is going to keep you warm. It's got more of a purpose to serve you as protecting you from the winter. And I think that if you're looking for a coat that is going to keep you warm, you definitely want something that's a natural fiber. So you want something that's a wool or a cotton blend, or something it's made from either plant or, you know, a wool, just because naturally they're going to keep you a lot warmer rather than your polyester. And then what was the other one?
So the final one then was slim fit versus sports fit.
Oh, sports fit. Gosh, sports fit. I'm not quite sure what sports fit is. Slim fit, I can tell you slim fit is, it's not tight. It's not hugging the body, but it's like sitting really closely to the body. So you might not be able to see the shape of the torso entirely, or sort of the knees or the thighs, but it's going to come really closely to the body. And then on the other end of that, you've got a loose fit, so a wide fit, where it's actually going to sit out from the body and you won't be able to see any shape at all. So if you were talking about, yes, Valdana?
No, I was just to say, and that's probably more closer to the sports fit. I would imagine if you're doing an exercise, it's a bit more looser, and it has more casual tone to it. Then yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. And on the other end, you have skinny fit, which is totally hugging your body and it's super fitted.
Totally, exactly.
What are the sort of things, I mean, a lot of us are working on a budget, and it's, I guess, Chloe, I'd like to talk a bit about some of these key themes that you've mentioned to me around what's happening in the fashion industry and around sustainability. How do you identify where to spend your money? What can you save on and what can you spend on?
Yeah, okay. So my advice there is, my mentality is that a wardrobe is to be built, and you don't do it overnight, and you know it takes years, and I've been doing it for years, and I think that you want to spend the most money on your basics, or the things that you wear constantly, because you're going to be wearing them. You need them to serve you their purpose. And then I think the things that you can kind of, you know, not spend as much on are the trend pieces. If something's coming in and coming out, or if it's a hot color, or if it's just, you know, something fun that you want to wear just a few times, that's where you wouldn't spend your money. But sustainability is such a big thing, you know, and talking about, you know, designers who are having things made offshore and they're having their collections disrupted. If you do buy Australian, and if you do buy made in Australia from Australian designers, it is more expensive. That's the thing. You know, it's not like you can buy your whole wardrobe made in Melbourne or made in Australia. It's just not feasible. But you can pick certain things, and I would say that they would be your basics.
Or investment pieces, as I call
investment
them.
Pieces, yes, exactly.
Absolutely. I do have, and totally I agree with your approach. Like, you build the wardrobe over a period of time, and it does take absolutely a few years. When I was younger, I was buying a lot of clothes because, you know, it was trendy. I liked it, and then I could easily almost like dismiss and donate. As I'm getting older, and it sounds like I'm quite old, but I'm not, I just feel that it just suits me much better to buy, you know, 3 or 4 even statement pieces, that I can build my wardrobe around that. So if there is this pretty amazing shirt that I just absolutely love and adore, and it's made in Australia, for example, I'll commit to spending money on that, but then I'll probably just stick to more basic jeans, and so that shirt will stand out and I just don't have to spend that much money on jeans. So yeah, I think building your wardrobe as well around few statement pieces is not a bad way to go. But yeah, everyone's different, so whatever kind of is your way.
That brings me to a great question, Vildana and Chloe, around, I guess there's a difference between knowing what's in fashion and knowing what your style is. And then if you're blind and no vision, the additional challenge around how do you shop to that style. Have you got any tips or advice around how it is you kind of start off? Maybe if you don't know what your style is, what's the best way of working that out?
Vildana, did you want to take this one?
Oh, well, I'm happy to. I think, and certainly you can add in your perspective, Chloe. I think a style is collective of whole of who you are. It is really in my mind, style is really to reflect who I am as a person, what are my values, what sort of roles I'm playing or partaking in my life, what are the occasions or environments I'm in. It's not really to say, okay, here is the formula and this is your style. It really also kind of, to me, is identifying various designers and brands and listening out for their ethos, their value stands, and is this something that aligns with yourself? Like I said, also knowing your body and as well, what is your body shape, and because some styles will suit you better than the others. For example, I'm tall and slim, which means if I was to wear something really loose and fitting, I feel it would look on me like it's hanging on a hanger. So I think it's really coming down, it's taking that bit more of philosophical approach to it, rather than here is the formula and you kind of just follow it and you'll come out with a style. I don't know, Chloe, if there's anything you'd like to add from your perspective.
I completely agree. I think that, a few years ago, we sort of said, if you're a pear shape, you should wear this. If you're tall and skinny, you should wear this. But I think that your personality is such a representation of your fashion, as well as feeling comfortable. And I think the best way to figure out what really works and feels good is to just experiment with a friend as well. Bring someone with you, find the brands that you like. As you mentioned, Vildana, if you can find 5 or 6 brands that their style, that their fabric, that the sizing fits for you. You don't have to go
Absolutely.
into the store every time. You can you have that trust and that rapport with them. Yeah, it's
absolutely. I'm 100% with you. And like I said, but maybe, Polly, just really is this a good time that I just talk a bit about even just, how to shop or
that would be wonderful. It would also
Yeah.
be great if you could, just making me think as you're both talking about that, it sounds like, particularly if you're blind or low vision, having a trusted opinion really matters. And how do you make sure you've got that? For instance,
Sure.
even as a sighted person, I know that people, if I ask somebody's opinion, it comes through their own perspective of something, and they might be a
Absolutely.
different age from me, and they might not have the same lifestyle as me. So how do you do that?
Yeah, and I do have lived experience. I have low vision, so I think that's it is an interesting field to navigate through. So before even starting to listen out or finding out that friend to help you with your shopping, I think the good starting point is to do a wardrobe audit. So it's really to look through your wardrobe. What is it that you have? What is it that you don't have? How do you want to organize it? Some people like to sort it out by colors. Some people like to, on 1 or 2 hangers have, for example, different combinations that they can wear. So this is kind of a good combo for dinner, or this is my work outfit. So it's all kind of laid nicely for you on a 1 hanger, for example, that particular wear. Also, some people like to, just have it pants to one side, shirts to other side, or skirts in the middle, blazers on here. So it really is important that you organize a wardrobe that will suit you. I know that Vision Australia Shop has amazing technology that can help you with that, and of course occupational therapists as well. They can help with wardrobe organization, but things like color detectors that can help you as well, and washable labels that you can put on your or even I think you can iron some onto your clothes. So when you use, I think they're called pen frame, they will just read it out to you if you have no vision to know what is the combination that you have. From there, I think once you sort out your wardrobe, you figure out what are the gaps, what is it that you're missing. So let's say you're missing a basic pair of black pants, and you're missing 3 different tops, whatever that is, but you identify what are the gaps and what is it something that would add a bit to your wardrobe. You just want to refresh it a bit, whatever the reason is. My way of figuring out who is the person that I can take shopping with is really listening out. Who is that person in my environment, whether they're family or a friend, that gets a lot of compliments for what they're wearing? So some, you know, if I ask, you know, what do you think about this person's style? Everyone will say, oh yeah, they look nice. But actually, if you just observe and listen out what's happening in your environment, it's the best way to know who is quote unquote stylish. I would approach them and ask them, can you just describe what you wear? How do you choose your style? What are your brands? And so on and so forth. And it's pretty much you also, yeah, interview a few people from your circles, friendship circles, family circles, and as well ask them to describe how do they choose clothes and style and what is it that they wear. And that's when you make a decision. Because often it's so easy to take your mum or your sister or your brother or yeah, whoever is kind of available there. But I know if I was to take my mum shopping with me, I would still look like I'm grade 1. Totally, I know my mum always sees a little girl in me. So that's kind of a good way. And then when you go shopping in the store itself, look out what is the mannequin in the window wearing. That's where often designers have really good solid combinations that you could quickly take. Just say, oh yeah, I'm going to buy this. It's well put together. They accessorize it, so there's a bag as well and shoes next to it, so it's kind of done. Also, the way they put clothes on the racks. They put, for example, shirts and pants that match well on one rack. So that is also a good signal that this is kind of, yeah, these two might go well together. Sometimes they put jacket or cardigan if it's winter. But yeah, there is a good way of, yeah, finding out good combinations.
Dildana, sorry to jump in, but we've just had a really useful question. It's a great question actually related to that, about using a stylist and how you would go about finding a stylist if you don't have that person in your group who gets compliments or whose opinion you think would represent your own. How do you go externally? Where do you find someone like
I
that?
would say that if you just Google, you'll find plenty. But also I know that department stores such as David Jones Meyer, they do have their own stylists that you just call department store and ask them. You can have one. I know they're costly, but I'm sure I've heard that some people have paid through NDIS for that. So that could be the starting point. And yeah, then is when you go shopping. I know that there is a popular question now with online shopping. I mean, it's a very convenient, in particular during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's really simple and easy. But I, as someone who has blindness or low vision, I struggle a bit with that. Because even when you have a good vision, the photo of, for example, a silk top looks amazing online, and when you go into an actual shop or when you see the top, it doesn't, I wouldn't say that it often matches to what you see. I think this is also like you build your wardrobe over the time, you build your knowledge of designers over the time and different brands. So I feel very comfortable buying with certain designers or brands my clothes online because I know their sizing, I know their style. I know if I see, for example, a high-waisted pant, that it's going to be a perfect fit for me in that particular size because I've tried it before. If there is a brand new brand or a designer you never heard of and you really like what's been described to you or what you can see, I would just really, yeah, read a lot about their refunds and return policy before you do your first purchase, and just yeah, do a modest first purchase. Some offer for you to call, so also if you call department stores, they'll be able to help you with your online shopping. Yeah, you did have some thought on Iconic, Chloe, I know as well. We talked a bit about that before.
What's Iconic?
The Iconic, it's an online shopping platform. So it's Australian owned and it does have brands from around the world. So going back to thinking about, you know, if you want to buy international brands, buy them from an online Australian platform. So then you're still sort of keeping that dollar in Australia. And the really good thing about the Iconic is you can put in all these kinds of filters. So if you want something that's quite specific, you can narrow it right down and they will give you a selection. They do have a lot of products, so it can be overwhelming. So as Vildana said, you can just call them. But there are some other really great online shops. The Undone is another one. My Chameleon is another one. Inku is another one. And we'll put these in the notes. But there are a
Thank
few.
you.
Yeah. They're just a few of like my favorite. And as Vildana was saying, I think brand loyalty is a thing, because that's something that's definitely resonated with me. The jacket that I'm wearing at the moment, it's Arnsdorf, and she is an independent Melbourne designer, and everything is made and manufactured in Melbourne. And I did see a question fly in before that said, why is why is it so expensive to buy Australian? And Polly, I hope you don't mind if I answer.
No, that's great. I was going to ask you that one. That's one I was really confused about, because often when we talk about fashion and style, we tend to name check the higher end ones, which are out of most of our budget. So
exactly. And it's hard, because it's like, how do you bring that price down? Because they're still quite a specialty thing. But what you need is, we need more brands bringing manufacturing into Australia. So what Arnsdorf does is, if you go onto a website and if you look at you know, this is the only thing I own from there because it is very expensive, but you can actually break down, and she tells you how much her rent is, how much the fabric costs, how much she paid the pattern maker that's, you know, in the factory next to her, how much she paid her machinist, how much it costs for delivery. And when you bring all of those things on shore, it is expensive. And I don't know what the answer is, except for, you know, if we
Well,
can
it's
get
not
more
mass
brands.
produced. Yeah,
It's not
it's
mass
not mass
produced.
produced.
And
Yeah.
it's an investment piece, you know. It's not like you'd go to these brands and buy up big and get, you know, your fun trend pieces. I think they'd be your investment pieces, because you know their quality, everything has been made. And they're also the kind of brands that you can go back to and say, hey, I lost a button, or my hem's come undone. And she says, no worries, bring it in and I'll fix it for you. So it does.
Sorry. That's an interesting point around the about the repair and maintenance of clothing, and I guess from a sustainability perspective, that's coming more into fashion now. It's something that's discussed. If you're blind or low vision, how do you kind of keep track on whether you've got a button fallen off, or whether there's something cotton trailing? Is there a way that you can make sure that you keep your clothes in really good order?
Well, so in the way that you store your clothes, absolutely. I think you should treat your clothes, you should treat your trend pieces that you don't love so much like your investment pieces. You know, I think jackets, they need to be hung up on quite a thicker hook. Pants should always be either clipped at the top or hung over a hook. If you've got something that's wool or like a heavy jumper, I wouldn't hang it up, because if you hang it up, it gets really heavy on the hook, and you'll actually end up with these two lines at the top of your shoulders. So heavy jumpers you want to fold and you want to keep in your drawer. Doing things like that, but also washing. Or do some research, because I've had some disasters. But especially if you're going to be using natural fibers, you need to work out how to wash them, whether you soak them in warm water or cold water. Jackets, I really think you should get dry cleaned, but you know, we can't get everything dry cleaned. But yeah, I think looking after your clothes will make them last so much longer.
And just
Please
to go back to
clothes.
thanks, Chloe. And we've had a great tip come in from Joan around getting that quality at a price that's affordable, and that's go for the end of season sales, when you can get some really great stuff at prices that are more within budget.
Totally. That's a really great tip, Joan. Yeah, especially end of financial year. I don't know what it'll look like this year in, you know, the current climate. But at the end of financial year is a really, if you wanted to do one shop a year, that's when you do it.
Oh gosh, that's coming soon.
I know.
Another question, and we've had a few questions come in around the issue of colour, which I know is a huge one. If you're blind or low vision, how do you get a handle on colour in the first place? And then also, how do you work out what colour suits your skin tone, work out what colours match with other colours in your wardrobe? Have you got any tips that you can share about that?
Vildana, did you want to take that one?
I can just share from my personal experience, but certainly you come in here as an expert.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tricky one because quote unquote rules change all the time. So what was fashionable yesterday, today isn't. I kind of would take it more to the occasions rather than the trend. So, for example, for work, I mean, if you want to be a bit audacious and bold, you can go bold colors like, bright yellow or, hot pink. But for work, you would use a bit more kind of monochrome colors. For the night out, you can go a bit absolutely crazy and have a good time in dressing your silver pants or red blazer for men, whatever that is. But I can't just say, I mean, I would go the occasion rather than what's trendy. But when it comes to maybe you can talk a bit more about what are the colors in trend and how to figure out against your skin tone, Chloe.
Yeah, it's because color is such a hard one, and again, it goes to trying lots of things on and maybe having someone there who you really trust their opinion. But if we're talking about color or if we're talking about statement pieces, my rule of thumb is that if I'm going to be wearing a really bold jacket or a really bold pair of pants, that's my statement. So then the rest is quite neutral. So I sort of like to keep, but you've got Romance Was Born, who is a designer who is more is more. And if that's your vibe, then more is always more. But for me, I like to keep a big, bright, colorful statement piece as one item in my outfit. But when it comes to picking colors that suit you, I mean, if you've got quite a dark complexion, sometimes lighter colors actually look really nice because they contrast your skin. And then if you've got quite a light complexion, sometimes if you wear too much light, you can look a bit washed out. I mean, that's kind of going at the basic end. So if you start as that as your formula, and then you add on top of that, I know that if I wear too much sort of pale pink or too much of a skin color because I'm so fair, I do look a bit washed out. But if I put a black jacket over that or something to balance it, it ties it back in. But yeah, also just experimenting as well.
Benita's written in to say that in Perth there's a place called Your Colours, which help you decide which colours suit you, which sounds fantastic. And maybe that's
that
also
sounds
something
wonderful.
that a stylist would be able to help you with.
Oh, completely. And when you work with a stylist, they're there with you. So it's so much easier when you work with a stylist, what they do is they'll either come into your wardrobe or they'll go into store with you, and they can see your body shape, they can see your color complexion. And once you're there, it's so much easier to be able to work out what really suits you. But obviously not everyone has access to that either. So going off my base foundation, I think is the best place to start.
Fantastic. We've also had a question come in, which I think is a really good one, around accessorizing and also how you wear something. So you may buy a shirt or a skirt, but there's lots of different ways in which you can dress that up with something, match it with something else, or clash it with something else. How do you do that?
Okay, so if you've bought a blouse, and maybe we'll use Vildana's gorgeous blouse that she's wearing here as an example. It's like a dark red. It's got a sort of a black, is it a flower pattern? It's kind of hard to...
Yeah, it is flower. Yeah.
Okay, so you've got this gorgeous red blouse. I'd say that if you were going out in the evening, maybe you would want to put some black wide leg pants with a black stiletto, and maybe you'd hold a glitter black clutch, and that's like super sharp, super sophisticated, an evening look. But if you've got this same blouse, you're not going out on the evening, it's a Saturday during the day, it's a bit warmer weather, put a mini skirt with it. And so you could either match a red or tying in with the black, because sometimes it's nice to tie in one color with something else that's going on. So I keep going black to black just because of that outline. So you'd put a black skirt, either mini, or we didn't talk about this, mini skirt, which is above the knee, midi skirt, which is below the knee and in the middle of the calf, or a maxi skirt which goes down to the end, all would look amazing with a black sandal. If you wanted to go one step further, you could put a belt around the waist. A belt around the waist is really great for someone who might feel like they're a bit curvaceous as well, because it gives you a bit of shape and really accentuates your waist. And then a tote bag. Tote bags are great. I take mine to work. I take mine out on the weekends. You know, I take mine out to dinner. I feel like a tote is this classic, what a tote is, it's a black, sorry, it's not black, it could be any color. It's a rectangle bag and it's just got 2 straps. It's so simple, but it's a really cost-effective handbag as well. But I mean, yeah, so those are some basic tips going off what Vildana was wearing, but I think don't be shy. So if you put a different belt on the same outfit, it might look completely different. And if you hold a different bag, it'll look completely different. And, you know, you can even put a big gold necklace around, you know, on top of that top Vildana, and that would look so dressy as well.
And maybe
Yeah,
as
so
well,
you can dress it up or down depending on the occasion.
Exactly, yeah.
And again, I suppose that's that way of you know, really making the most out of pieces that you do invest in. We've had
Absolutely.
a brilliant comment from Sally come in. She says that 10 years ago, she paid $400 for image consultation. And she reckons that since then, she's saved 20 times that much by not buying clothes that she doesn't end up wearing or buying or liking. And apparently there's an association of image consultants that you can find someone in your area to help with that. So that's really interesting to know that actually that felt like an investment for her that saved her in the long run. When it comes to looking after your clothes, that you touched on that briefly, Chloe, around how you make sure you put things on hangers or put them in the cupboard if that's more appropriate. One of the challenges, I think, is paying attention to the washing labels. What do you do if you're blind or low vision? And I mean, as a sighted person, I find it really difficult to read the labels anyway because they're tiny, but I have access to that. What do you do if you don't? Vildana, have you got any tips around that?
I think it's just knowing what the fabric is. So obviously, if it's a merino wool top, you're not going to put it on a 40-60 degree washing. So yeah, I think like your wools, your silks, your natural fibers, I wouldn't wash on a high temperature. It's a very gentle wash, sometimes hand wash. Of course, jeans, you can wash them as many times as you like. They'll be fine.
Or not wash them at all if you don't
or
want
not
to.
wash them, yeah, that's a thing as well.
Yep.
But I would go, yeah, that's kind of how I figure out based on the fabric. Natural, gentle, and of course expensive fabrics usually require gentle wash, and yeah, polyester is usually okay with washing on a yeah, 40 degrees should be fine.
And
Yeah,
Cameron pointed out that Ira is also a great tool for helping reading labels, and also the colour piece as well. That can really help out with that.
Absolutely.
We've had a really interesting question come in from Veronica, who's asking about how, as a designer, you stay on trend, and also about pricing your items. She's starting out in the field. How do you keep up, Chloe, with what is a fashion trend, and how do you then respond to that as a designer?
So my one piece of advice as a designer, I think it's important to know what's happening globally in terms of maybe the current climate, but trends, it sometimes gets a bit funny if a designer just sort of keeps going on trends. I think that you need to have a point of difference. And so that point of difference gives you your identity that is so different to every other designer. And I think that is the most valuable advice that I could give to any designer, because it is quite an oversaturated market and you do see common trends come through. But sometimes, because I see so many collections, I can see that that designer has produced a collection that looks really similar to that designer's collection last year. Were they inspired? Maybe. But I think if you've got a point of difference and you kind of, you don't look at what everyone else is doing, and you kind of know yourself, know your brand, know what inspires you, and just drive into that, I think that is going to be better than looking around at what everyone else is doing. Obviously, you do want inspiration for sure. Nothing is original these days, but yeah, I think don't follow the trends.
That's great advice. And I found it really interesting when we were doing preparing for the catwalk at the Melbourne Fashion Festival. The catwalk we were doing involved, I think, 8 different designers. And as I was going through their collections, it was really, you could tell as you moved from one to the next, they each had, as you said, that kind of unique point about them that made them different, that made you be able to say, oh, that's that designer and this is that designer. And I guess that's what you're trying to aim for.
Completely. I think that's so important, because in a saturated market, you'll just, you'll get sort of swallowed out, or you won't be noticed, you won't be recognized.
But this is one for both of you. How do you keep up with what's in fashion in terms of being informed by it? Where do you go? Where's your sources for that?
For me, again, comes down to knowing your brands. So I am loyal to, let's say, 5 or 6 brands. I kind of follow what they put out. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. But that kind of helps me to stay in touch to, what's out there. At the same time, just reading an odd article here and there, what's kind of in the trend, what's not, just having, just kind of staying in the loop, even just by doing a simple Google search, that can help as well.
Yeah, and I think that one other thing is, I know that magazines are facing a really challenging time at the moment, but they are an incredible source of knowing. You can go to one place to sort of see what Australian designers or what international designers are doing in one spot. And a lot of articles, they might touch on, all the different types of coats that designers are releasing this year, or what woolen jumpers are out in the market, and they might put it all in one place, and it'll link to all different designers. But again, it's reading the articles to see what the climate is producing.
Are there any good magazines that are kind of doing review of Australian fashion and Australian designers that you could recommend?
Definitely Vogue, definitely Harper's Bazaar. One that I like is Rush magazine. It's not an incredibly mainstream magazine, but they're sort of like a culturally driven sort of touch on a bit of art, and they're a fashion magazine. They're incredible. In Style magazine is really good. And who else have we got? Who, What, Where is also another really good one. If you, okay. I mean, that's probably enough. I don't check all of those every day. But I definitely, I've got Vogue on Instagram, and I do have a look at them daily, just because sometimes I hear things from Vogue for the first time that maybe I haven't read in the news, or
I've had a great conundrum come in for you both. So I would like an answer from both of you, please. So we've got a single woman in her early 30s who never knows what to wear on a first date. What would you suggest?
Oh, wow. Well, my advice is don't look like you're trying too hard.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a good one.
Look kind of neat. I wouldn't. Yeah, it's just like a neat. Depends if it's a daytime meet, or if you're meeting during the daytime or the nighttime, or the place of where you meet. But let's say if you're meeting Saturday 7 p.m. at the bar, I would just probably go again, something to reflect who I am as a person, and also the mood of the day. But I wouldn't go any bold kind of super crazy statement pieces there. I would just, neat is my way to go, probably. But again, depends from my mood. I might just rock up in a silver pant and say, this is I am, like it.
Chloe,
sorry, I don't think that I've answered your question well. Maybe Chloe, you can.
It's a hard question to answer. And again, as Vildana said, unless, you're wearing something that's like really wild and bold all the time, then that's who you are. And then of course you wouldn't change that. But you don't want to look like you're trying too hard. I feel like you are beautiful the way you are. You don't need to wear too much makeup. You don't need to go an enhanced version of yourself. I think that, sure, you want to be a polished version. So you might put on your fancy shoes, and you might take your fancy handbag. And of course, you might blow wave your hair. But I think if you can keep natural to yourself, if it takes off and you end up getting married and having 3 kids, you still want to be that person in 3 years' time that you are on that first date. Even if you're a bit more of a slightly more polished version on that first date. Yeah.
That's fantastic advice. Oh, this is a wonderful question that's coming. Well, we don't have much more time, but we need to make time for this one. Okay. Any suggestions or resources for daggy dads for smart casual?
Love this.
This is wonderful. First of all, I'm obviously new to the country relatively. What's a daggy dad?
A daggy dad. It's so funny. I mean, my interpretation would be a slightly less stylish dag, but sometimes a daggy dad is cool without even knowing that they're cool. So it depends whether they're a hipster cool dad or they're just slightly daggy. But I mean, guys' fashion can sometimes be so easy. And if you can kind of get a few really nice pants, a few really nice pair of shorts, a few tops and t-shirts, if they're neutral colors, anything will almost go with anything. If you wanted to keep it really simple, that would be my advice.
I remember you and we were talking, Chloe, a while ago about you dressing up your partner to an occasion where...
Oh, yes. Okay, this is a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you, I don't know where were you going, but yeah, just tell me what did you put on him?
I remember that conversation. So we were going out for dinner, and what I thought was talking again about matching a color to something. So my partner, Alex, he actually went for white jeans, which he doesn't often do, but because he let me dress him, he had white jeans on, and then he had like blush colored socks, and then
what's blushed color socks?
So a blushed color is not red, it's not pink, it's kind of in the middle, it's a bit soft.
Sure.
It's a bit more muted, it's not quite too loud. Then so the blush socks, and you could see the socks because we'd rolled the white pants up just to expose the sock, and then he had some brown leather shoes on. To match that, we got a blush t-shirt, high round neck t-shirt that it wasn't a loose fitting, but it wasn't a tight fit. I'm going to say it was a slim fit. It was a slim fit, and we tucked it in. And so he was kind of wearing 2 colors. It all kind of matched, but he looked so stylish. And that's how simple it can be. It was just matching his sock to his shirt. And that was like the considered, that, that made the look feel considered. Yeah.
Did he have a blazer on in the end or not?
Can't remember if he did or not. Oh, actually he did. And you know what? He didn't wear it, but he was carrying it. He's got a dark olive green blazer, and green and pink, even though they're contrasting, they look really beautiful together in all different shades.
How did he feel in it, Chloe?
I think he felt pretty good because he was walking around feeling he wasn't sure about the white jeans at first, but once we put them on, I think that you have to be willing to try something new. And if you put it on and you don't like it and you hate it, you go, awesome, I tried it, I don't like that, I'm going to try another color.
And I guess that's the kind of the other piece as well around clothing. It is obviously how it looks is massively important, but also how it feels and how you feel in it really kind of is a big part of the piece as well. If you're not comfortable in it, no matter how great it looks, you're not going to feel like yourself out there.
I think that's the most important part. I think that if it fits and it's comfortable and you feel secure and you're not adjusting and pulling and always having to move things around, that's the first part. Because when you put an outfit on, you kind of don't want to think about it anymore. You just want to feel good. If you're constantly thinking about the outfit throughout the day, something is not quite right.
Thank you both so much. I'm terrified to see we've come right to the end of our time and then some.
Oh my gosh, already.
I know. We've had some great questions come in. Thank you so much, everyone, for writing in with your questions and comments. And also for those of you who asked specific things around terminology that we haven't covered, we'll make sure that they go in Chloe's guide as well. And as I say, we'll make sure that goes up on the website, and we'll also bring that up on social media for you guys. Thank you so much, Chloe and Vildana, for joining us and for sharing your expertise and your insights, and really kind of responding on the fly to a lot of these questions. Thank you.
Oh, thank
Thanks so
you.
much for having us.
I could have, yeah, do another 45 minutes, no problem.
Yeah, let's keep going.
I'm with you. For everyone at home, recordings of past webinars and also a schedule of upcoming webinars can be accessed via our webpage. So that's www.visionaustralia.org/check-in and chat. Our next webinar is going to be this Thursday, the 4th of June at 2 p.m. where our guest speaker is university lecturer and trained teacher for students who are blind and low vision, Melissa Fanshawe, and she's going to talk about learning online. Just a reminder that Vision Australia is offering our services via telehealth, which is conducted through phone, video conferencing, email, or a combination. And you can contact our AT help desk if you'd like support getting set up for telehealth. You can call us on 1300 84 74 66 or email us on info@visionaustralia.org for more information and to get started. Meanwhile, do look out for information later in the year about Vision Australia's partnership with Melbourne Fashion Festival for 2021. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.